So with descriptive research, the key to understanding it is that it's associated with a lack of control. The person who is doing the descriptive research is not trying to test a specific independent variable to see if it has an effect on a dependent variable. Typically, the experimenter is oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes looking at many, many different variables, not creating groups in advance of the study. Just maybe, for example, giving a survey out to a lot of people, measuring all sorts of variables, and then bringing it back and looking to see if any patterns show up, any relationships show up. All right. So again, with descriptive research, it's characterized by a lack of control. We're not controlling extraneous variables very well. We're not manipulating independent variables where, we set out at the beginning and say, I want to test the effect of this on that. We're not doing that. We're not creating groups, right? We're just looking at what is already there in front of us to see if there's any patterns or relationships. So, an example would be I might want to give a survey to a bunch of students at SUU, and the goal of this research is I want to see what variables determine whether students will pass or fail statistics and whether they'll like statistics, etc. So I'm going to ask a whole bunch of questions on that survey because in advance I really don't know what I'm going to find. So I throw in a lot of variables that I suspect might make a difference and see what I get back. Now, when I get my data set, if I have, let's say, enough male and female participants on the survey, then maybe I'm going to want to compare them later on to see is there an effect of sex on whether or not somebody passes or fails, or whether they enjoy or don't enjoy statistics. But I've only determined that once I've got the survey back and I see that, yes, you know what, I have enough in each category here, so I'm going to do that analysis. All right, but going into the survey, it's not like I randomly, you couldn't randomly assign people to sex, but it's not like I came up with that, predetermined, I got to make sure I've got an equal number of men and women, and I'm going to give them a survey and see if there's differences. I just gave the survey out to a whole bunch of people, and afterwards I'm looking for statistics that I can run on the survey so that I can maybe see if I have group differences on one or more variables. All right, so again, later you can always identify IVs to see if they differ on one or more dependent variables, right? But I'm not going in right from the get-go saying I'm going to test the effect of this on that, and I'm controlling very little of the environment that the participants are in, all right? All right, so this then describes descriptive research. It's very kind of true to life because there's a lack of control. So people say that the results of the survey might be more applicable than an artificial, very sterile laboratory environment. But because you're not systematically manipulating variables and keeping all other variables from interfering, it means you cannot establish cause and effect very well, right? With this type of research, you're bound to have lots and lots of confounds. So, although with descriptive research, you can certainly identify relationships, you cannot assume that those relationships are causal. That means you cannot assume that one variable caused another variable to change. You need to run a true experiment to get closest to that. All right. in some ways, I guess the most confusion that I see among students when they're learning about descriptive research, they confuse descriptive research and quasi-experiments a lot of the time. Those seem to be confused more so than a true experiment where, people have been randomly assigned to different levels of an independent variable. So let me see if I can give you some guidance here on how to tell the difference. So in a quasi-experiment, you're going to see groups. You're going to see different levels of an independent variable, at least one. Because certainly experiments can have, and quasi-experiments can have more than one independent variable. They can also have more than one dependent variable. But in a quasi-experiment, again, you're going to see different groups that the experimenter made sure that they somehow controlled how many people they were testing in each of those conditions. But the experimenter did not randomly assign people to one condition or another because these participants came in with their pre-existing condition. So if, let's say, I want to look at BMI is my independent variable, I want to compare low body mass index to a healthy body mass index to overweight and obese. So I've got 4 levels there, right? We've got underweight, healthy weight, BMI, I should say, overweight, and obese, okay? So I can't randomly assign participants to one of those 4 levels. They come in with that pre-existing condition. So that makes it a quasi-experiment because it's a subject variable that I'm testing, also called a classification variable. All right, but you can definitely see groups being tested, and then they're going to be exposed to something, a dependent variable, and I'm going to see if the dependent variable is different for the 4 groups. So it looks very, very, very much like an experiment, a true experiment, only no random assignment to groups, nor would it have been even possible to randomly assign them to the different groups. In a quasi-experiment, I'm still going to try my darndest to control extraneous variables in and around the experiment, right? And that I know that even though I control other extraneous variables, the ones that I'm aware of, because I can't randomly assign participants to if the variable is a subject or a classification variable, I can't randomly assign you to the different groups. That means that even though I try to control extraneous variables, there is a good chance that there will be confounds. Even if I don't know what they are, there's a good chance that they'll exist. Now, in descriptive research, there's an utter lack of control, right? So I have variables that I want to measure. Those variables are already in existence, and there could be very many. There has to be at least 2, right? If I'm going to do some sort of descriptive research, I need at least 2 variables so I can see, are they related to one another? But I could have many variables that I'm interested in, and a lot of descriptive research takes the form of survey research. I throw it out there, have participants answer all the questions, and then later when I get that back, then I can say, I wonder if sex of the participant has any influence here, or does year in school matter, or does whether your religious background matter, or your racial background, etc. But these are all things that I kind of establish after I get the survey back. Then I firm up what's going to be compared. But there's no attempt to make to use any kind of control over the environment that participants are in or whatever. I'm just measuring what's already out there. All right. This I've already just said, and that's where we don't control things, not even the number of people in each group, because we don't identify these groups in advance and then make sure that an equal number get this, the survey or whatever. You see this fishing net flash? That's the analogy for descriptive research. In descriptive research, it's like you're throwing out this great big fishing net and then waiting a couple minutes and then bringing it back into the boat to see which fish got caught. And until you know how many of each fish you have, you really don't know if you're going to have enough to compare different groups, like the red fish from the blue fish. All right. You have to see what comes back, and then you say, okay, I have enough for this analysis, but that's not determined in advance. You have to throw the net out, see what comes back.